The 2025 NBA trade deadline is quickly approaching on February 6th, and all 30 teams are getting ready to engage in negotiations in varying degrees. There are obviously some teams much better equipped to make noise down the line than others, but no team is perfect, and everyone could make some changes that would help themselves out in the long run. That's exactly what we'll be focusing on in today's video and tomorrow's video, where we'll be going through every single team in the league, and we'll be picking out the one player that needs to be traded the most from each, with this video going through the Eastern Conference teams and next video finishing up by going through the Western Conference teams. Some teams need massive overhaul, while others only need minor moves around the edges, and the selections today will reflect that. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. Going in alphabetical order, we have the Atlanta Hawks to start, and the player that they need to trade before the deadline is Clint Capela. Capela may have been the team's starting center for most of the season, but he was never really used as such, and over the last few games the Hawks finally moved him to the bench, solidifying the fact that they are ready to move on from him. Onyeka Okongwu is proving that he's ready to take the reins as a starting center in the NBA, and it would be better for both parties to find Capela a home on a team in need of some big man depth that may have playoff implications. Next up is the Boston Celtics, and the player they should trade before the deadline is Jaden Springer. The Celtics are the defending champions with a core ready to contend yet again, so they don't need to make any big moves, and after taking a swing on Jaden Springer's youthful upside last season, there doesn't seem to be a path to playing time for him anytime soon. He's still just 22 years old though, so a rebuilding squad should definitely take a swing on this former first-round pick. Next is the Brooklyn Nets, and the player they should trade before the deadline is Cameron Johnson. Johnson is going to be a highly coveted player on the trade market over the next few days as a premier 3-and-D wing talent that can space the floor and provide balance to any lineup. He's having the best season of his career so far, putting up 19 points per game, shooting a lights-out 49% from the field and 41% from 3, and whatever contender lands him will instantly be getting a player that can make the lives of their team's stars easier. Next is the Charlotte Hornets, and the player they should trade before the deadline is Vasilije Micic. Micic is a 31-year-old point guard who came over to the NBA from Europe last year, and while he isn't even having that great of a season, with how bad the Hornets season has been going as a whole though, he'll likely want to at least get a chance to find minutes in a rotation of a team playing some meaningful basketball at his age. Next is the Chicago Bulls, and the player they need to trade before the deadline is Zach Lavine. Lavine has rejuvenated his career this season, playing some of his best basketball, and with his value on the open market restored, the Bulls need to take advantage of it. The team is shifting in a new direction, and as Lavine is about to turn 30, he's in the prime of his career with tons of interest from other contenders looking to take a big swing on his borderline all-star talent as a perimeter scorer. Next is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the player they need to trade before the deadline is Caris LeVert. The Cavs have surprised everyone being in first place in the East, so trades aren't urgent, but with the emergence of Ty Jerome in their rotation, Caris LeVert becomes a bit expendable and could be used as a piece moved in a deal for an upgrade. LeVert's playing much more efficient basketball this season, so his value is up, and for the Cavs, they could look to maximize his hot streak and go all in here. Next is the Detroit Pistons, and the player they should trade before the deadline is Isaiah Stewart. Stewart's made more of a name for himself with his hot-headed temper than he has as a basketball player lately, and his play on the court doesn't even justify his antics anymore. The Pistons are a worse team with him on the court according to net rating metrics. He's playing the fewest minutes per game of his entire career this year, and the Pistons have the big man depth to survive without him, so both parties should look to get a fresh start. Next is the Indiana Pacers, and the player they should trade before the deadline is Myles Turner. Turner's been a big part of the Pacers for about a decade now, but he's on the last year of his current contract, and the Pacers front office has reportedly expressed the fact that they don't really want to offer him the big money contract extension that he's going to be looking for this summer. If Turner hits free agency, the most likely scenario is that he would leave for no return to the team. So before that can even happen, the Pacers should strongly consider seeing what they can get for him within the next week. Next is the Miami Heat, and the player they need to trade before the deadline is Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has made it abundantly clear that he wants to leave. He's been suspended twice for publicly making those wishes clear, and at this point, it's for the best to get a deal done. Butler has never been one to shy away from being a distraction to get what he wants, so instead of allowing the circus to continue, they should seriously engage with the several suitors reportedly interested in him and make a deal happen. Next is the Milwaukee Bucks, and the player they should trade before the deadline is Khris Middleton. The Bucks are reportedly willing to make Middleton available if it means that they can find an upgrade, and with the team expressing interest in guys like Zach LaVine and Jimmy Butler, Middleton would be the odd man out. Middleton has been a key part of the team's core for years, but his days as an all-star caliber guy are long gone, so the business side of things may overtake the emotional connection he's made with that city. Next is the New York Knicks, and the player they should trade before the deadline is Mitchell Robinson. Robinson has been injury prone for pretty much his entire career and hasn't played a single game yet this season for those same reasons. The Knicks are paying him too much money for the unpredictability that comes with his availability, so the smart thing to do would be to try to shed that salary to open up some flexibility moving forward. Next is the Orlando Magic, and the player they should trade before the deadline is Cole Anthony. Anthony has shown flashes of scoring talent over the years, but is way too inconsistent to be trusted in a big role at this point in time, and as a result of it, he's playing the fewest minutes per game of his entire career. The Magic are focused on winning right now, and could make an aggressive move this week, so Anthony seems destined to be involved in any offer that they do make. Next is the Philadelphia 76ers, and the player they should trade before the trade deadline is KJ Martin. Martin was paid a 2-year contract worth $8 million per year this summer, pretty much solely to make that contract tradable. Making salaries work in NBA trades is always difficult, but this move seems to have been planned ahead of time. With how the Sixers season has been going too, they definitely need to make a change. Next is the Toronto Raptors, and the player they should trade before the deadline is Bruce Brown. Brown is an established, impactful role player with championship pedigree who doesn't really fit into the Raptors timeline. He's a 28-year-old two-way guard who could help any team with winning aspirations, so the Raptors will definitely be receiving a handful of phone calls inquiring about Brown's services. And finally, the last team in the East is the Washington Wizards, and the player they should trade before the trade deadline is Kyle Kuzma. Kuzma has been pretty bad this season, all things considered, but he's exactly the kind of player who may just need a fresh start somewhere else to get his head back in the game. In Washington, they're losing a lot, they're more focused on developing the young talent that they have, and with Kuzma's history as an explosive scorer who has a ring to his name as well, he likely wants to get back to competing on a winning team too. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to stay tuned for the next video where we'll finishing up by going through the teams in the Western Conference. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.